Your dog has met this person 4 times now. The first 3, pure joy. Tail going, that full body lean against their legs, the soft little grunt she makes when she wants her ears scratched, and that one specific spot behind the left one. You remember thinking how sweet it was, how simple. The 4th time was different. This person walked into the room, and your dog looked up from the rug. She didn't bark. She didn't growl. She just looked. And then, without a sound, she stood up, walked across the floor in that slow, careful way dogs walk when they're thinking. And she sat down behind your legs, pressed against the back of your calves, watching. You laughed it off. You probably said something like, "Oh, she's just being weird today." Maybe you reached down and ruffled the top of her head and turned back to the conversation. Maybe you forgot the whole thing inside of an hour. But she didn't forget. Somewhere inside that small, careful movement, the way she chose her exact spot, she was telling you something. Something she'd been holding back for weeks. Maybe months. You just didn't have the language yet to hear it. Here's the thing. If you've ever told that kind of story to another dog person, you've probably gotten one of 3 explanations back. And honestly, all 3 of them are wrong. Oh, dogs can just tell when someone's afraid of them. Sounds reasonable, right? People do tense up around dogs. Dogs do pick up on tension. But your dog didn't tense up around someone scared. She tensed up around someone who walked in cool as anything. Confident. Comfortable. Maybe more comfortable than they should have been. So that theory falls apart pretty fast. The second one is the explanation everyone reaches for eventually. Dogs have a 6th sense, a spiritual antenna, an aura reader. And look, there's something almost beautiful about that idea. But it's also a way of not really looking at what your dog is doing. Because the truth is more specific than that. And honestly, way more impressive. The third one's the favorite of people who want to sound scientific without actually being scientific. It's just smell. Dogs go by smell. Yes, dogs read chemistry. Yes, scent matters enormously. But scent alone doesn't explain why the same dog will fall in love with one stranger in 5 minutes and stay quietly distant from another for 3 years. 2 humans, almost identical chemistry, completely different verdict. Your dog isn't running on superstition, and she's not running on instinct alone either. What she's running is something closer to an evaluation system, a pattern recognition engine, refined over thousands of years of living next to a creature as messy and contradictory as us. And the engine has one North Star. One reference point it keeps coming back to. You. Now here's the part most owners never quite realize. Most people think their dog just has a weird thing about certain people. A quirk. A mood. Something kind of funny to mention at dinner parties. They never stop to ask why the quirk is so consistent. Why your dog warmed up to one friend inside 10 minutes and has been politely distant from another one for 3 years running. But your dog has been quietly making a list. And that list, it says more about the humans in your life than it does about your dog. By the time we get to the end of this, I'm going to walk you through the small, easy to miss signs your dog uses when she's flagged someone. Not barking, not growling, smaller than that. The kind of signal you've almost certainly already seen and almost certainly already explained away. Once you know what to look for, you won't be able to unsee it. So let me tell you about something that happened in Japan. In 2017, a researcher named Hitomi Chijiwa at Kyoto University set up an experiment that never got the headlines it should have. Her team brought in pet dogs, one at a time, and they had each dog watch their owner try to open a clear plastic container. Nothing dramatic. Just a container with something inside the dog couldn't quite make out. Then the experiment branched. In one version, the owner turned to a stranger sitting nearby and asked for help. The stranger helped. No big deal. Smooth and quick. In another version, the owner asked the exact same question, and the stranger deliberately turned their face away. Refused. Looked down at the floor like the owner wasn't even there. And the whole time, in the corner of the room, a third person just sat quietly, doing nothing. Neutral. Uninvolved. Then came the part that mattered. After the interaction was over, both the unhelpful stranger and the neutral stranger offered the dog a treat. At the exact same moment, same kind of treat, no eye contact, no hand gesture, nothing that could subtly steer the dog one way or the other. Here's what happened. When the stranger had helped the owner, the dogs took treats from both people. They didn't care. Everything was fine. Friend of mom, friend of mine. When the stranger had refused to help the owner, more than half of those dogs walked right past the offered treat. Past food. From a hand that was holding it out, palm up. And they went instead to the neutral person, someone who had done absolutely nothing for them. Hadn't fed them, hadn't petted them, hadn't even looked at them. They chose the nothing person over the unkind one. I want you to sit with that for a second. Your dog will turn down food for you, not because she's scared, not because someone's fighting over her bowl, for something as small, as quiet, as invisible to most of us as somebody being a little unkind to you across a room. In a way, you might not have even registered yourself. The dog wasn't there to defend you. The dog wasn't there to retaliate. She was just watching. And somewhere inside that quiet watching, she made a decision. This person is not safe for the one I love. And then she did the only thing she had the power to do about it. She refused the offering. There's no version of that that's small. Your dog is keeping score for you, and she has been all along. Now, here's what I really want you to understand about that experiment, because the headlines around it always miss the actual point. Your dog isn't a tiny moral philosopher. She's not sitting there sorting people into good and bad the way we would. She doesn't have words for rude or selfish or kind. What she has is something simpler. And in a way, something more honest. A single question she's quietly asking about every person who walks into your life. Did this person make my human smaller? That's it. That's the whole calculation. Not did they raise their voice, not did they say something mean, something subtler, something almost impossible to fake. Did your shoulders drop when they walked in? Did your laugh come out thinner than usual? Did you say less than you normally say? Did you fold a little bit inward in a way you didn't even notice yourself doing? Your dog notices every single time. Your dog doesn't track who's nice to her. She tracks who's nice to you. And when you really let that land, it rearranges something. Because most of us have spent our whole lives assuming we're the ones doing the protecting, the feeding, the walking, the watching out for traffic. And meanwhile, this small creature, the one with the chewed up squeaky toy and the wet nose and the snoring, she's been quietly running a second job underneath all of that. The one we never asked her to do. The one we didn't even know existed. To understand where that instinct comes from, you have to go back further than you'd expect. A lot further. About 15,000 years ago, somewhere in the cold edges of what would eventually become Europe and Siberia, the ancestors of every dog you've ever loved were still wolves. And those wolves lived in packs of maybe 15, 20 animals at the most. A world small enough that every single member mattered. And large enough that a stranger walking into camp could rearrange everything. In a world like that, the most important skill wasn't strength. It wasn't speed. It wasn't even being a good hunter. It was being able to read another animal. To know, in the first few seconds of contact, whether the new arrival was family, ally, rival, or threat. The wolves who couldn't tell the difference, they didn't pass their genes on. The wolves who could, they did. Generation after generation after generation, quietly perfecting a kind of social radar that had nothing to do with magic, and everything to do with staying alive. Then somewhere along that long, slow timeline, something extraordinary happened. The wolves who were just curious enough, just trusting enough, came a little closer to our firelight. And we let them stay. Here's the part I can't stop thinking about. As dogs evolved alongside us, that pack of 20, the whole world they were built to monitor and protect, it slowly collapsed. Not because the instinct disappeared, because the pack got smaller and smaller and smaller, until for most domestic dogs alive today, the entire pack is one or two human faces in a kitchen. Every ancient mechanism that used to monitor 20 wolves is now focused on you. The radar didn't weaken. The world it was built for shrank. So all of that intensity, all of that 15,000-year-old vigilance comes pouring down on a single human standing at the coffee machine on a Tuesday morning in pajamas. You're not just her owner. You are the entire pack the instinct was designed for. Compressed, concentrated, trained on one person. That is not a small thing to be loved by something with that much history behind its eyes. So how do you know when your dog is actually using that ancient radar on someone specific? Not in theory. In your living room, this week, there are 4 signs. They're quieter than people expect. If your dog does any of these around one particular person, more than once, in a clear pattern, she's already flagged that human inside her head. Whether you've caught it or not. The first one is positioning. Your dog moves to stand between you and that person, not aggressively. No raised hackles, no teeth, no growl, just a body, casually placed in a space it didn't used to occupy. A soft, deliberate barrier wearing the face of a sleepy pet. The second one is appetite. Your dog stops eating or refuses a treat the moment that person enters the room. Food has weight for dogs, real weight. When they walk away from it, something has overridden a very deep system. If you've ever filled the bowl, sat down to dinner, and watched her leave her food untouched because a certain guest just showed up, you didn't imagine that. The third one is the cluster you've probably seen 100 times and never named. Yawning. Lip licking. A small, slow turn of the head away from the person who's talking. We tend to read those as tired, or hungry, or just being a dog. In dog language, those are stress signals, calming signals, quiet, polite ways of saying, I am not okay with what is happening in this room right now. The fourth one is location. Your dog picks a new spot to lie down, not her usual bed, not on your lap, somewhere new, somewhere strategic, and always with a clear line of sight to the person she's watching. She's not napping. She's on shift. If you're sitting there right now, mentally going down that list, ticking off 2, 3, all 4 around someone specific, listen to me. You are not paranoid. You're paying attention to something your dog has been telling you for a long time. The next time your dog reacts to someone in a way you can't quite explain, don't apologize for her. Don't laugh it off. Don't pull her away by the collar and promise the guest she's usually so much friendlier than this. Watch her. Just for a second longer than you normally would. Look at where she puts her body. Look at where she puts her eyes. Look at where she chooses not to be. She might be telling you something you needed to hear a long time ago. And if any of this stayed with you, if you found yourself nodding or pausing or quietly thinking of a face you hadn't thought of in years, I'd love to know in the comments. Tell me about the person your dog never quite warmed up to. Tell me what happened. Tell me whether you eventually understood why. I read them. All of them. There's something I'm learning from those stories that no study, no lab, no research paper has ever taught me. One more thing before you go. If you've ever woken up at 3 in the morning and realized your dog wasn't sleeping next to you, but watching you sleep, not lying close to you with her eyes closed, but actually watching, eyes open, in the dark, head lifted just enough off the blanket to see your face. That's not random either. That's the next story I want to tell you. I'll see you there.